few weeks ago, I did a video that I think a lot of you enjoyed, and I know why. A lot of us don't want to spend a lot of money on fragrance. I totally get that. And it was a video taking 5 of my absolute favorite niche fragrances in my collection and offering a cheaper alternative for each one. Now, we're doing a part 2 today. I'm happy to bring you 5 more of my absolute favorite luxury / niche fragrances in my collection and offering some cheaper alternatives. But I do want to stress a few things. Number 1, emphasis on the word cheaper. Not all of these are necessarily cheap. Cheap being like $40 or less. I am a firm believer in a lot of the time with fragrances, you do get what you pay for. I do believe in paying for quality, but I also believe in paying for what you can afford. But I also believe in saving money and saving for something that you actually want that might be out of reach in the moment. There's a lesson on instant gratification that we could insert here, but we will slide that over for another time. Second thing I want to note is that the relationship between the pairs of fragrances I'll be giving is not necessarily based on the cheaper alternative smelling just like the original. If you want to do that, you can find yourself an actual clone. I don't really care that much for clones, and I'm not really talking about any clones in this video. What I'm mainly focusing on, scent is definitely similar, but that is not top of the list here. Top of the list is actually going to be function and overall vibe. These fragrances are going to have perhaps overlapping personalities that can function in the same kind of situation or scenario to give you the vibe you're looking for, to bring that energy into the room that you want to bring. With all that out the way, let's dive right into it. One of my absolute favorite fragrances for the summer has to be L'Humaniste from Frapin. I think this is a stunning fragrance. I do believe it's worth every penny if you love it.
I happen to love it.
It is so uplifting, it's so fresh. It's based on gin and juniper berry and citruses. There's a brightness here that is mouth-watering. There is a sharpness that is so cooling and refreshing, especially in the heat. Not the most robust fragrance. It will die down on the skin after a couple hours, but it actually will stick around for, 6, 7, maybe even 8 hours. It'll just be very close to the skin. I love this stuff, again, for the heat. It is wonderful, perfectly unisex, amazing quality stuff, and quite unique. This alternative, honestly, doesn't really hold a candle to L'Humaniste in terms of scent quality, but in terms of the vibe and the function, I think it's gonna go along the same lines. It can be very casual. It's something you can wear in the heat. It's very uplifting. It's very bright. It's very pleasant. It's a little bit more playful and perhaps a little bit more juvenile than L'Humaniste, but that's fine. We're talking about one of my favorite cheapies. This is a bona fide cheap fragrance. This is Sean John 3 AM, and this is perfect for the summer. You can find this thing 20 bucks or less. Again, doesn't smell the same, but has a similar personality. Very bright, effervescent, has this tonic water feeling, has citruses, has some cardamom in there that makes it fresh and spicy, a little bit of fig leaf to add a touch of a greenness in there. But it's mostly a little sweet, very spicy, fresh, kind of fizzy and bright. And again, something to wear casually during the warmer weather, similarly to L'Humaniste. So that is my first pairing, L'Humaniste and 3 AM. Up next is one of my absolute favorite fragrances from the house of Creed. Not a ton of people love this one. I can't explain why I love it. I think I just really love Fougeres. This is a Fougere, and it is a robust take on the Fougere. This is Viking. Spicy and fresh, lots of lavender in here, making it very clean. Lots of patchouli and lemon and bergamot and lots of pink pepper and sandalwood and vetiver, all kinds of things coming in here to make a fragrance that is, again, fresh and spicy, almost fiery in its spiciness, but also has a beautiful cooling mint quality to it. Dries with a dry woodiness that almost turns kind of creamy and a little bit sweet as Fougeres can be, but I mostly get a lot of vetiver on my skin, which is kind of a dry bitter wood, but still so smooth, so classy, and very, very good quality. This is classy fresh. I would typically like to dress this up. I would usually save it for the daytime, but because it is classy, you could wear it anytime. And as you know, if you know Creed, not cheap. Let's talk about a cheaper alternative. And I have 2 alternatives here. They're both Fougeres. They're both cheaper than the Creed. Neither of these are cheap. The first one up is Margiela at the Barber's. This is their flagship Fougere. It is kind of a basic Fougere, but it's a beautiful quality one. It is a great entry point into the genre if you're looking for a way in to get used to these kind of classic barbershop style scents. It is fresh and spicy. It is creamy and sweet, almost like shaving foam in a way. There's a leathery base in here that makes it a little bit darker and rougher as it dries. That's really, really nice. But if you're looking for the same kind of presence as Viking, you're gonna have to spend a little bit more money. That is Tom Ford Beau de Jour. This stuff is on par in terms of quality, in terms of presence as Viking. This stuff is, again, also Fougere, perhaps a little bit more old school smelling, a little bit more mature, lots of lavender, lots of amber. It's warm. There's a dry woodiness in here. It is utter classiness in a bottle. You can wear it in the same situations that you would wear Viking. Again, I would dress it up because it's classier. This stuff is a little bit more casual, perhaps. I would feel comfortable wearing this in a t-shirt on a warm, sunny day. But this stuff I would want to dress up similarly to Viking. So we got this little trio to consider. I'm gonna have links to everything down below, by the way, if you want to check them out. I do recommend sampling. And that's one thing that kind of nullifies anyone being upset that my cheaper fragrances are not necessarily cheap. If you know me on this channel, you know that I don't really recommend blind buying bottles. If you can avoid it, get decants, get samples, save the heartache and the headache and save you some money. I will link what I can down below. Here up next is the first fragrance I ever smelled from the house of Negate, and it quickly became my first love from the house. Not one that everyone loves, but I find this so unique, so powerful, so provocative. This is called Fan Your Flames. I've talked about this a lot over the years. This is sweet, boozy tobacco with an earthy, dry woodiness in there, and even a touch of coconut. It almost smells like a tropical drink, but it's way darker with that tobacco. It's almost like syrupy in its darkness. There's something even a little bit smoky about it, which also makes it much darker than what you would imagine from like a pina colada or something. Really interesting stuff, very powerful stuff. Something I would reserve for the evening time, dressed up in darker colors during the cooler months. And a fragrance that I would also wear like that again doesn't smell like Fan Your Flames, but can serve the same function and vibe. It's coming from Cartier. This is Pache de Cartier Parfum. This is a stunning flanker. This is a flanker done right. This is how a flanker should be done. This is the original Pache, which is a Fougere, but is a very thick and rich Fougere that actually has great performance for an eau de toilette. It does smell a little bit dated, but I think it smells amazing and amazing quality for the price that you pay. That was actually featured in our previous installment of this series, but its brother, the Parfum, is here in this episode. This is a sweeter, richer, warmer version of the original Pache. It is based on some resin, so there's this almost like smooth, creamy, balsamic quality that is kind of damp, but it is made a little bit fresh on the skin. There's still a little bit of this openness to it, so it's not too dense and rich, not as much as this. There's some very smooth sandalwood in there, and there is a boozy quality that makes it sweeter and a little bit more mysterious, but still very elegant. Both of these can work elegantly. This might be a little bit more off the wall. This still does have some uniqueness to it, but it will be a little bit more reminiscent of the Fougere genre because it's based on that DNA. Anyway, this is our next pair, Pache de Cartier Parfum, as an alternative to Fan Your Flames from Negate. Up next, one of my favorite fragrances from Amouage, which I have recently heard has been discontinued. I can't 100% confirm that, but I'm seeing that from multiple sources. But this is Beach Hut Man. This is one that I loved as soon as I first smelled it. A powerful green fragrance. This is green and mossy. This is mint. This is vetiver. This is a little bit of sweet resinous myrrh that adds a different dimension to the scent. So it's not just earthy green like out in the jungle or something. It also has this warmth to it that balances things out, that again gives it some depth, and it is a powerful fragrance. I'm not kidding you. 2 sprays, 3 at the max, and if you're going 3, I would stay out of small rooms. Honestly, this is a powerful fragrance. So an alternative to this, what could it be? A fragrance that is not a designer. We've seen a lot of designer alternatives. This is coming from an indie brand known as Rogue Perfumery. This is Mousse Illuminée. This was a gift from the Fresh Fam, my patrons over on Patreon. Really appreciate all of you guys for all of your support of me and what I do. This is also a very green scent, also using oak moss, but actually has real oak moss in here. Manuel Cross, who's the perfumer of this brand, he does not abide by IFRA's rules. If you're not familiar with IFRA, they are a governing body that
governs
what can go into fragrances in the mass market or even on the niche market. But indie brands, I think, can kind of fly under the radar. Real oak moss in here. If anything, this smells similar to something like the original Polo Green, but like the OG. This is rich and powerful. Again, green and mossy. There's something kind of old world about it, but it's still modern. It's still easy to wear. It does carry a similar type of classiness that Beach Hut carries. So I would dress both of these fragrances up. I would usually wear them in the daytime, mostly in the spring, maybe in the summer if it's not too hot, because they are quite strong. I don't like wearing super strong fragrances out in the heat. They become cloying and overwhelming, at least to me and possibly to others. But one I recommend checking out, again, not a cheap fragrance, but not expensive. You can find this thing under $100, but get a sample. Don't even look at the bottle price. We're looking at samples here. Sample this if you're interested. There's our next pair, Beach Hut Man and Frapin L'Humaniste. Our final pairing. Almost any fragrance I paired with this would be a cheaper alternative, because this is one of the most expensive fragrances out on the niche market. This is coming from Raja Parfums, and this is called Diaghilev. I love this stuff. This is a guilty pleasure. This is something that I find so intoxicating. I may not always be in the mood to wear it because it is quite a confident and authoritative personality, and I have to be ready for that. I have to want that vibe as I go into whatever situation I'm going to for the day. And sometimes I do want it and I know what I can reach for. This is a sheep, which means that it's based on a lot of dry oak moss, maybe a resinous feel from labdanum. Very, very dry and mossy and woody, but a nice little duality here with some fruits and florals, peach and rose and other things like that that make it almost succulent. So it's quite a duality here, but very powerful stuff. Again, very authoritative. If you wear it right, if you dress it up, if you wear your best with this thing, wear it elegantly, it can work some magic, but not in the sense of people will tell you you smell good. That is just the surface. Compliments are the surface, at least to me. Having a lasting impact on someone, even if they don't tell you you smell good, that goes a long way, because that affects your interaction and your connection with that person. Henceforth, I care way more about that. Anyway, this thing is almost $1,000, if not over $1,000 for a full bottle. I would recommend sampling it if you are interested, but a cheaper alternative if you're looking for one. Again, one that does not smell like this, but has a similar unusual quality that may turn some people off. It's not gonna be for everyone. It does wear confidently. It does wear in a way that you have to be ready to own yourself in the room. Otherwise, it will wear you. This is Habit Rouge from Guerlain. Again, does not smell like this, but there's this air to each of these fragrances that smells old school. It smells of antiquity in a way, but also timeless at the same time. And again, it has a little bit of an edge to it that some people might be turned off by, especially if you smell up close. And you know how I feel about that. I talk about it all the time. Do be wary of assessing fragrances like that and saying, oh, I don't like it. If you like it like this, you're probably gonna like it in the air. That's a safe bet. But if you don't like it like this, don't let that be the final say. Again, does not smell like Diaghilev, but may serve the same function, may have a similar personality. Not quite as rambunctious as this, but still just as confident and still just as unusual. Habit Rouge from Guerlain. Now it's your turn to let me know in the comments, have you tried any of these fragrances at all? I want to know your opinions. Let's talk about them down below. Do consider subscribing. It's completely free. You have nothing to lose. Would love to have you back. And thank you so much for tuning in. Peace. I'll see you in the next one.